Yahweh. I'm Dr. Gabriel Andrade from the Liberal Arts Department here at the College of the Marshall Islands. And today I'll be joined by David Wilbanks. He's also from the Liberal Arts Department here at the CMI. He's the author of the book Twin Suns, and we'll be speaking about that book today. Hello, David. Welcome.
Hello.
So what's this book about? It's science fiction, right?
Yep, it's science fiction. It's about, well, it's in the future where humans are colonizing another solar system, and unlike a lot of science fiction, Earth isn't one unified government. There's still different countries, and so naturally, as soon as they get to a new solar system, they fight over it.
So it's basically like Spain and Portugal and France and Britain fighting over empires when they expanded during the age of exploration and all of that.
Yep, it's a lot like that. That's kind of what gave me the idea. Kind of a big factor in this is the communication lag that you'd have. You had the same problem during the colonization of the Americas, where it took a few months to communicate back to Europe. In this case, it's a new solar system about 5 light years away. So that means any communication takes 5 years one direction. I decided not to go with any, futuristic technology that wouldn't be possible under the technology we have now. I mean, I don't have anything that goes faster than light, so.
Well, is it even physically possible? I mean, I've always heard physicists that say that no, it's not possible. Ever since Einstein, it was established that no one can go faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not breaking that speed limit. I mean, there's been theories that there are some ways you could kind of get around it somehow, but through moving in a different way as opposed to actually going faster than light.
Right.
But I'm not using any of those technologies. In fact, every technology used in the book is at least theoretically possible under technology we have now, under where we currently are in physics.
Twin suns.
Mm-hmm.
What suns are these?
It's just a solar system with 2 stars.
So, and is that climatologically possible? I mean, wouldn't it be overheated, a solar system like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, it just depends on how far away all the planets are from it. I definitely do have one planet that's pretty close to them and pretty hot.
So
nobody lives there.
Right. Well, just as in our solar system, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the first two.
I mean, it'd be this. It wouldn't really be different than a solar system with one sun. I mean, just the distance from the suns, affects how hot a planet's going to be.
Right. So you say that the Earth has different governments, and they get into fights with each other over the. Are there natives in your world of that whole solar system? Because that was a big concern when France and Britain and Spain and Portugal they got into fights. They got into fights amongst themselves, but they rarely took into account the natives' point of view. Like, for instance, there was a famous pope who divided the world between Spain and Portugal, but he never asked the natives whether they wanted their territories to be split, right?
Yeah, and that's that was definitely the case in the colonization.
Right.
In this, there's only, up until the events that take place in this book, nobody was aware of there being any sort of natives, though they do find some on one of the planets.
All right. Are there humanoids?
Yes. Yep, they're humanoids. I don't want to give away too much about them.
Yes, of course.
They're some of the best characters in the book.
Right, indeed. Well, but the thing is that I've always heard science fiction writers and physicists and astronomers who say maybe we shouldn't assume too much that alien life, if there is any, would resemble too much human characteristics.
True.
Because maybe they have adapted to different conditions, so it would be too chauvinistic on our behalf to assume that they would have 2 arms, 2 legs, they would be bipedal and so on.
And I tend to agree with that. I mean, I think it doesn't much make sense that they would evolve to be anything like us unless they're on a planet very similar to ours, which the ones I have are on a planet very similar to ours. The main difference is that they're reptilian rather than
they're reptilian.
Yep. But it is fairly well explained in the book. It's a planet similar to ours, but with I'd say much higher level of oxygen, which allows for much larger insects. Thus, it wouldn't be totally unreasonable for insect-eating creatures to evolve rather than the mammals. I mean, on our planet, the mammals were only able to evolve and become the kind of
The
dominant sort of
yeah.
life after the massive extinction of the dinosaurs.
Right.
Without that kind of massive extinction, it's not unreasonable that intelligent reptiles could have evolved rather than mammals.
Right, so thank God for that
I mean-
meteorite that hit the Yucatan Peninsula, right? And that's how the dinosaurs disappeared. Right, you talk about that there is a political component in your book then, you know, in the sense that different governments go to blows against each other, trying to conquer.
There's maybe a little bit, but not a huge one, I guess. Perhaps a little bit pessimistic, or perhaps a slightly pessimistic political event in that while this is happening in the twin sun solar system, while they're essentially fighting each other for resources and everything, ostensibly there's peace on Earth at this time, and so I guess perhaps it's a little bit pessimistic about what countries would do while still claiming there's treaties going on, which I mean did happen sometimes in the age of exploration.
Right.
I mean, where technically Spain and England are at peace, but that doesn't stop Spanish privateers from raiding English shipping.
Right. Of course, they're stabbing each other's back without even them acknowledging. Do you think there's any way that the Marshallese could relate to this book?
I hadn't really thought about that.
I mean, if it's sort of an analogy of the age of exploration, right, or an allegory, Marshallese were the natives, and you know the Germans and the Japanese, and later the Americans were to a certain extent the colonizers. So, if your book deals with the topics of exploration and colonization and so on, do you think a Marshallese reader could relate especially to that, or?
I'd say honestly, not necessarily to a huge degree, just because I mean there's less of while yes I did write several scenes, and honestly I think some of my favorite scenes from the perspective of the natives in this case, the reptilian creatures, who one of the characters, I don't know what name they have of themselves, but one of the characters does refer to them as lizard dudes throughout it. But the scenes I wrote from their perspective were a lot of fun, but I don't know that that anyone else would necessarily relate to it. I think as far as the issue of colonization and exploration goes, the focus was more on the fight between the major powers rather than the aspect of colonization, just because there's very few natives here, and they have very little interaction with any of the colonizing powers.
Are you an optimist in the book? Do you think humanity, in the end, will find everlasting peace?
Ooh, everlasting, that's kind of...
Yeah.
I guess in the book, the ending's not terribly optimistic, but I guess as far as what I think will happen, if it does, I think it'll be long after I'm dead, so I don't know.
For the time being, we'll still have wars.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, in the last 100 years or so, well, since World War II, I mean, the level of conflicts has definitely decreased, and what constitutes a war now is, the same amount of people over 5 years dying as died in 1 day of fighting in the trenches in World War I. So we're
So
getting
there's room
better.
for
We're
optimism in that
getting
sense.
better.
Right.
I don't know if we'll ever completely stop.
Right. Well, David, we've run out of time, but it's been a pleasure having you. And whenever you want to come back and talk about any other of your books or whatever other books, here we are.
Well, I'll have to hurry up and finish the next one then.
All right. Well, thank
All right,
you very
thank
much
you.
for coming. And thank you, people, for having watched us. And I'll see you in another video.